What's up, everyone, and welcome to a new edition of Kane's Hub. So I'm back in North Carolina, back living the life here near the team. Super excited. But with all that being said, it's even more exciting. Hurricanes playoffs right around the corner. It should be a great season. It should be a great postseason, I guess I should say. The Hurricanes have looked pretty solid down these last 5 or so games with bringing in a lot of rookies, a lot of younger guys, a lot of the AHL guys to play, and giving certain guys nights off rest. I think it's a smart idea. I think it's the right idea. But before we go into that, I do want to preview the other series that are going on, give my hot take, and we'll walk through and I'll let you know who exactly I think is going to end up representing the East. And no surprise, I do think it's going to be the Hurricanes. But I think there's going to be a lot more to it. I don't think it's going to be so black and white. I think the Hurricanes are going to have some struggles with some teams. But I do think that the Hurricanes are still the best team in the East. But without further ado, let's get into it. So starting with the Atlantic Conference, we'll start there. The Buffalo Sabres are set to host the Boston Bruins. And most of you guys don't know me, right? I've been a Hurricanes fan for the longest of times, right? Hurricanes finally made the playoffs back in 2018, 2019 season. I was at the game against Jersey. I was crying my eyes out. I was so excited that this team that spent so long not making the playoffs actually got themselves there. It was hands down one of the best feelings I've felt in a long time, right? So I can completely sympathize with the Buffalo crowd. I understand the heartache that's happened, especially come the start of the season. The start of the season, Sabres didn't look good. But I said back then, this team is talented. I would not be surprised if the Buffalo Sabres would actually be able to make the playoffs. And here they are. They made it, and I could not be more excited for them. That being said, they're going up against a pretty rough Boston Bruins team that can definitely beat them. That being said, do I think it's going to happen? No, I do not. I think the Buffalo Sabres have so much stacked talent and are so big on defense that whoever they run into, they're going to cause problems for. So with all that being said, I do think that the Buffalo Sabres will defeat the Boston Bruins in this first series. Don't get me wrong, it's going to be close. It will be close. This series is going to be tough for Buffalo. But the amount of anticipation behind the team, Boston's got some hot and cold goaltending. Currently, Swayman's hot, but we've watched games where Swayman has looked very, very human, if you know what I mean. So I would not be surprised if I could see this going. I would say 6 games with Buffalo definitely having the clear-cut advantage on this one. But let me know what you guys think down below. All right. The next one, which I think this one, for as great as Buffalo is, I do think the fact that Tampa Montreal is going to be just that much more exciting, right? Tampa being a more of an older Grizzly, I almost want to say, a bunch of older guys who've been there, they've done that. They sort of kind of know the swagger that they have amongst themselves. They know how to win. Going up against a very young Montreal Canadiens team. That all being said, I'm actually going to call the upset and say that the Canadiens are going to have this one. I think that Tampa has sort of kind of lived out and gone through and has sort of kind of played its hand. I think we're going to see over these next couple seasons that I think we're going to see Tampa start trading away things. I think Kucherov is probably going to retire a Lightning's player, but I think a lot of it's time. I think at this point in time, everyone's sort of they've had their day. Everyone's a little bit older, a little bit more grizzly. I think that Tampa Bay is going to probably start going down after this season. I'll say it once, I'll say it 100 times. John Cooper isn't a good coach. When you're giving Stamkos, you're giving Hedman, you're giving Vasilevsky, you're giving Kucherov, you're giving all this talent. If you can't manage it, then you're an absolute shitty coach. He did great. He won a couple of championships, but I think now that he's going to have to bring up this next set of players that are a little bit younger, a little bit they don't have that's quite that skill level. We're seeing that he's not as good of a coach as advertised. And you saw that. I think you really saw that in the Olympics as well. You had all this talent, but you actually need to do a little bit of coaching. That all being said, the coaching side of things, I think you have to I absolutely love Marty St. Louis to start with. I think that Marty St. Louis is an amazing coach. He's done phenomenal things with that lineup. I think we're definitely living in the age right now where we're seeing a lot of uh, the guys. I'm 36, right? So the guys who we sort of kind of grew up watching are now coaching these teams, and there's so much respect from the locker room towards these guys that it's really starting to. It shows in the game. It shows in how well these younger teams are doing. That all being said, when it comes to the extra X's and O's of the lineup, sure, Vasilevsky and Hedman and Kucherov are monsters, one at each position, right? But I also think that Cole Caulfield is a damn good hockey player. I think that um, Hudson is going to be a huge factor, and the guy who we all sleep on, Noah Dobson, the guy from the Islanders who, if like, let's be real here, if Noah Dobson was on the Islanders, I think the Islanders make the playoffs, right? He's with the Canadiens, and I think that he's going to be sort of the X factor in this series, and I would say more so than Lane Hudson is. I say that because of this, right? Lane Hudson's going to produce some points from the offensive side, but when these big bodies start coming after him, is he still going to be able to contribute? I don't know. But Noah Dobson being able to shut down Kucherov is going to be crucial to the Canadiens actually winning, right? So that's why I'm a firm believer. I very much think that if there is going to be somebody who's going to come out here and has to shine for a team to be successful, it has got to be Hudson. All right. That also being said, I think that while Tampa is deeper, I think that the youth of the Canadiens is going to really push them through in this series. So, I'm not only saying that the Canadiens are going to win this one, I'm saying that they're going to do it in 5 games. This is going to be a despised opinion, but that is the level of faith that I have in these Canadiens. I think that they're a damn good hockey team, and I think that they're going to be able to do it pretty easily. So, all right. If you live in Pennsylvania, you were hoping, you were praying. We all sort of kind of wanted to see Ovi sneak into the playoffs to get a Crosby Ovechkin one last time. But what we're getting instead is the Battle of Pennsylvania, which, Battle of Ontario, I feel it's good. Some of these old matchups between the Rangers and the Hawks, or the Wings and the Leafs, always great games, right? So much historic rivalry to them. But is there anything better than Pittsburgh Philly? I don't know if there is. And with all that being said, this is going to be a great series. I see this one actually going 7 games. But with that being said, it's a complete toss-up on who's going to win. My opinion, and this is going to be sort of hated, I could go either way. It really could. Part of me thinks that Crosby's just going to do Crosby things, and this could be over in 6, right? But if it goes to 7, my money is on Philly. And I say that because, guess what, guys? Philly's a younger team. Philly is going to have that Philly crowd. They're gonna, once that puck drops Game 3 in Philadelphia, they're going to be behind that team. They're going to be roaring. They're going to be so excited to get back in the playoffs. And I think the younger players are going to feed off that energy. There's definitely going to be a little bit of time where they're going to be a little bit nervous. I figure Game 1 and maybe even Game 2 might not look so great from Philly. I would expect by Game 3, though, they'll have it all figured out. With all of that being said, the Pittsburgh Penguins have a lot of clear-cut advantages over the Philadelphia Flyers, right? Malkin, Crosby, Letang, Carlson. Even Skinner, I think, is an upgrade over what Philly has. But I will say this. I think that at the end of the day, Rick Tock is a really good coach. And I think that he has the potential to maybe outcoach Muse here. Mind you, Muse could easily be Coach of the Year. But I think that with everything being said, something in my gut says if it's 6 games and the Pens win it in 6, wouldn't be a surprise at all. If it gets to Game 7, my money is going to end up being on the Philadelphia Flyers, just because I think the Flyers will be able to. The youth of the Flyers is going to really shine through at that point in time. Where the Penguins sort of kind of had it locked in for a while. I think that they haven't really played well down the stretch. I'm looking at them right now. 5-5, and they lost 3 straight going into the playoffs. Not great. That's not great at all. Well, the Philadelphia Flyers have had to play playoff hockey for the last, you know, you know, I'm looking at now the Flyers are 7-3 in the last 10, and the Flyers are, the Penguins are 5-5. So with all that being said, I think Philly's got a little bit of an advantage here. I can easily see it going either way. But if you had to ask me, if I really had to ask, you really pushed me for a team, I'm going Flyers on this one. So that leaves me to my beloved Hurricanes, right? Which it would nice to get a little bit more respect from around the league, but who am I to bitch, right? So, with all that being said, Canes Senators, I do not like this matchup for the Hurricanes. First and foremost, I think that based on where the Hurricanes are as a team, based on the potential opponents that the Hurricanes could have, the path that they would have to take to actually get to a Stanley Cup final is a pretty difficult one if you really think about it. Like, what you're really hoping for is you're hoping for Philly, you're hoping for Tampa, and I think that would be maybe the best way for the Hurricanes to make it. But that being said, they got to get up through Ottawa first, and we have to hope that some of these other teams don't win. So that being said, Hurricanes, Ottawa, I think the Hurricanes do have a clear-cut advantage in a majority of the statistics, right? A majority of the positions, Hurricanes all day, right? I could break it down to you and say the power play is better, penalty kill is better, goaltending's better. It's a pretty long laundry list of it. But the Hurricanes are still have an issue. Like, for as good as the Hurricanes' goaltending is, the Senators is actually somehow worse. And when I say that, I say that tongue in cheek, right? Hurricanes have issues in net, but Allmark being sort of kind of super hot and cold has provided a lot of issues for the Senators. That being said, the biggest thing that's going to determine this series is the physicality. I think the Ottawa Senators are going to bring it. I think the Ottawa Senators are going to show the Hurricanes again why it's important to have a physical presence, and I don't think the Hurricanes are ready for it. I just don't. I think that the Hurricanes are going to sort of learn the hard way that you have to have the physicality throughout the lineup. And bringing in Dolores towards the end of the season, one guy who can hit and punish punish a team isn't going to do it. It's a roster buildup. And I made a video about this a little while ago saying that the Hurricanes got to figure this out because the roster build isn't correct. That being said, Stan Coven has 100% gone on a run. Super happy for the dude. For as critical as I was of him being able to actually go out there and put up 21 goals was where he ended up, is impressive. It's exactly what the Hurricanes needed. That being said, can you continue to do that into the playoffs now? Because that's when it really matters, right? So I'm going to give I'm giving the advantage to the Hurricanes on goaltending. Defense-wise, I think it's a lot closer. I think it's a lot closer defensively. The Senators have got some great defensemen. Where we've got the Hurricanes have Miller and Slavin, Gothisbehere, Niskanen. We've got some great talent. Don't get me wrong. But the other half of that is they've got great talent too. Sanderson being the big name that jumps out, right? Shabbat is back there. He's there. There's a lot of just talent, and there's a lot that is going to complicate things for the Hurricanes. But that all being said, I do think that the Hurricanes have a better forward depth than what the Senators do, and I think that's where the Hurricanes are going to have to win it. That fourth line with Courier and Chikowski, it's going to be important. It's going to be important that they're scoring and contributing and finishing off players just as much as anyone else is. But the big question of the day is, can they do it? Can they get the level of their game up high enough to where they can actually win this series? Kachuk is going to be an issue for the Hurricanes. I'm going to say that one more time, right? Because his ability to get people off their game is it's worth the price of admission by itself, right? And if he comes in, gets Svech off his game, gets Aho off his game, gets any of our top six off their game, Hurricanes are going to struggle. So I think the Hurricanes have this in 6, but asterisk, if it goes to 7, I think Ottawa wins it. And that's coming from a long-time Hurricanes fan who whose name of his channel is Canes Hub. So, with all that being said, from there, right? Let's play it out. So we're saying Hurricanes Philly, and we're saying Buffalo Montreal, right? So Hurricanes match up well against Philly. I think better than they do against Ottawa. I think that goaltending could at this point in time, goaltending again, sort of kind of iffy on both sides. Honestly, after Vasilevsky, especially in the East, there's not. I mean, Skinner maybe in Pittsburgh if they get past the first round. I do not see a single team in the East where I'm like goaltending is locked up. Goaltending is solid. Vasilevsky in Tampa is maybe the only one. Everyone else, either a young goaltender or an unproven goaltender. So I think that there's a lot of potential for. I guess maybe I'll give Swayman credit in Boston. I will give Swayman credit in Boston if they can get past Buffalo. But I just think that when it comes to, I just think when it comes to what's going on with the Hurricanes, I think that against Philly that they'll be fine. Mind you, Philly's played them really well. Each game has gone into overtime. Both styles tends to be every game I've watched between these two teams, it's a filling out process. It feels like for more than half the game, and then it's a little chip, it's a bad bounce, it's a rough and tough goal, it's a in front of the net type of goal that always ends up making the difference. So in a series of 7 games, do I think the Hurricanes have it? Yes, I think there's a little bit more forward depth with the Hurricanes again than the Flyers. But this will be the renewed rivalry, right? This is going to be the new rivalry, I think. For as much as Caps Pens was a big time rivalry and had a lot going on back and forth between the two over the last 10 years, I think that the up and coming Flyers and the Hurricanes, that's going to be the new one. Because a lot of people don't know, especially if you're not familiar with the Hurricanes, they got a lot of young talent that's just not up in the NHL yet. So as the Flyers continue to sort of bring in their top end picks and start to play them, the Hurricanes will start getting these younger guys into the lineup. And at that point in time, it's going to be interesting. It really is going to be interesting. I think the Hurricanes probably will have 2 more new players, new forwards in the lineup next season. Anyway, getting away from the main topic here. So I have the Hurricanes as one of the Eastern Conference Finals teams, just based on depth, goaltending, and definitely defense. The Hurricanes are handily better defensive team than what the Philadelphia Flyers are. So, where does that leave us, right? That leaves us with the Buffalo Sabres and the Montreal Canadiens. This is probably going to be must-see hockey. I'm not going to lie. For as cool as it would be or fun as it would be to watch Hurricanes Philly, I might be way more excited about a Buffalo Canadiens because that's just going to be fast. It's going to be good hockey. Lots of goals. I think I used to do a lot of like sports gambling stuff as far as like over and unders and giving my predictions on it. That series, you're wanting the over, I think, on just about every single one of them, So I wouldn't be surprised if the over under is set at 8 for that, as opposed to the 5.5 or 6.5 that we normally see. That all being said, I think that the Montreal Canadiens are going to come out on top on that one. I don't know. I'm going to take that back. I'm going to completely scratch what I just said. I think it's actually going to be the Buffalo Sabres. I think the Sabres have the size at defense that really makes the difference here. Where I still think that the Canadiens are a little bit small. A lot of their guys are smaller up front. And where I think they can get around it with Boston, I think they're going to struggle a little bit more with the Buffalo Sabres. I think that the Canadiens probably have the advantage in goal, but the just offensive firepower with Tuck playing real well, Tage Thompson, you've got so much skill in the Buffalo Sabres right now. The Hurricanes, I don't want to play him, honestly. That all being said, that gets us to a Buffalo Sabres Carolina Hurricanes Eastern Conference Final. And this is where it could go a lot of different ways. First and foremost, it can go a ton of different ways. But I think what's most important to understand is this, right? Hurricanes or the Sabres, either one of them could easily it could sweep the other team. It depends on who's beating up the most, who has the least amount of injuries in the lineup. That is what I think is actually really going to come down to. And I think that it's just going to be interesting to see what team shows up at that point in time. If the Hurricanes lose a winger, if Jarvis goes down with an injury going into the Sabres series, it's done, right? If a Slavin goes down in the Sabres before the Sabres series, it's done for the Hurricanes, right? But the flip side of that is if Dahlin goes down, I think it's over for the Sabres, right? So much of these two teams are based on one or two key contributing things that sort of kind of aren't like others, right? What I mean by that is, like, Dahlin is such a gifted forward as far as what he can do. Like, let's be honest here, right? We all know the Hughes brothers. We all know, like Hughes out in with the Wild, right? But let's be honest here. After him, who is like the second, third best offensive defenseman, right? I think that Dahlin has to be up there after the season, right? He's played really, really well. So maybe previous seasons, maybe we're not having that conversation, but I'm not going off of last year's stats. I'm going off of this year's stats. I think Dahlin is a complete difference maker for the Sabres. And if he's not there come the Eastern Conference Finals because he's injured, they're playing a different team. The same way that if Slavin isn't out and we don't have that defensive contribution, or if Jarvis is out and we're not having that grittiness on the first line that can also finish, it's a different team. So the team that's most healthy will win that series, I think. And that all being said, I'm wanting it to be the Hurricanes. I'm thinking the Hurricanes are going to be okay, but it could easily be the Sabres. So, with all that being said, guys, it's going to be a long path. It's going to be a great path. I'm super excited for it. I think that if you're a hockey fan, this is the time you want, man. This is the exciting time to really be here and be present and be able to watch these games. So, but anyway, guys, that's going to wrap it up for me today. Tonight, going live. If you catch this video a little early, we're going to be going live, me and my buddy, around probably about 7:30. Going to be going over what we've seen so far from the East. Super excited for that. And then I believe Sunday, it looks like we're going to be doing a little live stream while watching some games. So, love to follow, guys. If you guys can follow me, I really appreciate it. But thanks again, guys, and have a good one. Enjoy the games.